what is total control? We like to be in control as much as possible while accepting the things that we have no way of affecting. But what if the game was rigged from the start? What if one day we realize, wait, that's just Plato's Cave. This is Kirari, the president of the student council. Compared to the real-life equivalent, which mostly handles school events and clubs to a certain degree, in Kakegurui, the council has pretty much full reign over the school. They straight up decide people's futures, mapping it out year by year. And if they want to, they can sell those lives too. It wasn't always like this, and while we don't know how much power the council held before, now it's on a scale of ruling a whole nation. The school is the most influential institution, and for Kirari, it's also a playground for all her fishes. Obviously, the fishes being the students. Kirari's biggest achievement. Contrary to what might first come to mind when it comes to an aquarium, it's not about people being trapped in it. At least not entirely. Kirari enjoys the unpredictable nature of it all. She's fascinated by people she can't understand. If she can read you, be it in a gamble or otherwise, she immediately loses all interest in you. And you are in her aquarium, meaning that if she wants to, she can make your life harder. You are free to do whatever you want within the fish tank, but the council is still the one in control. It's this twisted freedom that might make her into a villainous character. See, as much as this whole story is about gambling, Kirari is not interested in money. Even if she didn't have it, I'm sure she wouldn't be too interested in it unless it's a means to an end. So how do you pay when your opponent is not looking for money? What is she interested in? How do you challenge somebody that has everything? They have no incentive to gamble with you since they have nothing to gain. And that is why Kirari is brilliant in this regard. She is constantly fighting boredom, predictability. Her only desire in gambling is an absolute thrill chase. She doesn't care about what cards she has. Her game is all about manipulating the opponent until they lose all of their confidence. Take this for example. While technically she is battling two people at once, in this moment she is facing off against just one of them and she says, which is the weakest hand in poker? The second strongest hand. Total nonsense, right? I mean, there's only one winning hand and one losing hand, but that's the thing. Confidence and conviction is much more effective than the words you're actually saying. Being vague also helps, as that's another technique to shake your opponent. You can't comprehend what Kirari is gonna do during a game because a lot of times it's not gonna be rational, which is gonna lead you to question everything. Every little detail, every little word she utters. The only way to win is not to play. And I don't know if you actually read this manga, but seeing people play against Kirari or Yumiko, yeah, she's a whole nother can of worms that probably warrants a separate video. These two are especially terrifying to face off. There is no strategy because seemingly they play without one. Kirari's ultimate goal is to lose everything. Now I'm not entirely sure why that is, but here's my 2 cents. For someone that has been winning pretty much all her life, at some point it's gotta get boring, right? Once that happens, what is more refreshing than to lose and lose big time? That's a whole nother level of thrill that Kirari never experienced before. But first, how could we defeat her? How do you counter impulsiveness? Little moments of pure insanity? Well, what if you could know every single thought of your opponent? It's relatively common to see a masked character in Japanese manga, and we do have that in this series as well. In this story, it's used for differentiating between two characters. You see, the masked character is actually Kirari's twin sister. She is the older one, but just like most everything in the show, it was decided with a dice who gets to be the head of the family. An interesting thing to note here is in the Japanese manga, Kirari's name is spelled out with kanji, while her sister is just spelled out with katakana. So the Japanese language has 3 different writing systems. Hiragana, which is used for most everything, katakana, is usually used for words that have been borrowed from foreign languages, and kanji is the Chinese characters. What writing somebody's name in katakana implies is that they're kind of unimportant. But in fact, Ririka is not meant to be a separate character, she's meant to be Kirari's shadow. That's what their parents wanted, although it is debatable if it really was their parents as we don't see them explicitly, so that could be wrong. But of course, twins are not exactly the same. Ririka has her own agenda, she has her own desires. When Kirari declares an election for the seat of president in the student council, she breaks free and wants to toss down her sister from the throne. She teams up with Mari, the most normal character, at least on the surface, and they challenge Kirari. Ririka knows everything her sister knows and sees, so she first tries to overcome her by pure luck. She wants to act like Kirari, how she was raised to be, gambling on the fact that the coin will land to her favor. In other words, pure RNG. Of course, we got the addition of Mari, who is gonna shake things up. At first, Kirari is not bothered by another player interfering, even though this is supposed to be a game that she pretty much plays against herself, but that just goes to show how much she doesn't consider Mari to be an obstacle. But of course, Mari proves herself by making bets outside of the match that Kirari has no way of knowing. They did this because Kirari can read everything that Ririka does. After all, they are still mostly the same person. But now, there's an unknown element to the game. I'm not gonna spoil how the game ends. If you watched the video till now, then you should definitely check out the series. It's much better than I can convey. But let me just end it on this note. By the end of volume 16, this is the imagery we get. Kirari is terrifying. She sits right between the predictable and unpredictable. Depends on the moment. And that's what makes her such an interesting character. You don't have any implication of what affects her. She wins by letting your doubts and insecurities eat you alive, with a healthy serving of calm display on her front. In fact, the blue lipstick, if I'm not mistaken, also symbolizes calmness and a level of stability. What I personally like is that she's never portrayed as a villain or a bad person. She is simply the one in control. And because of that, you never feel like you are rooting for somebody that is inherently evil, nor do you ever feel like that you're fangirling for the wrong person. Lastly, a public service announcement. Yen Press, the last volume came out in September. Your boy is starving. Now that manga became so popular in the West as well, you should make new contracts with the Japanese. We need more volumes, damn it. After all, you are translating the individual chapters, so what's taking so long?